All right, in 3, 2, 1.
It's better.
Good. All right, guys, welcome back to
Welcome back to the second episode of Sweet and Sour Therapy Pod.
We're still working on it. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Diving deep into our conversations where we just a couple talk about anything and everything.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Lynn.
My name is Andy.
Welcome.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about a fun little experience that we went through. Our wedding. Specifically, we had a viewer ask us about how we did our traditional Vietnamese Chinese wedding. So today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that and kind of go over exactly the little details, the nuances, and all the headaches and, countless nights crying, setting this up.
I don't think you were exaggerating when you said countless nights.
Oh, no.
Crying.
That's not hyperbole. That is...
It was very stressful. I think at one point I was talking to my career coach, and then I was talking to my therapist. I was talking to you, and I remember saying this. I'd rather go through the experience of buying a house more than once than putting on another wedding.
Absolutely.
It was the most stressful thing I have ever done in my entire life.
Yeah, no, seriously. Because, to preface, I had proposed in October of 2021 or 22.
2021.
Yeah, I proposed October of 2021 in New York City, right? And I think in January, right?
We made the decision that we're going to have a wedding. And at first, the grand idea was for us to have a wedding in Vietnam because we have a lot of families in Vietnam. And our parents were going to be able to come with us to have our wedding in Vietnam in September of 2023, right?
Yes.
And the idea was for us to have a party December of 2022. So then that would give us a 9 months runway for us to prepare for the wedding in Vietnam. And we knew that the most stressful part was probably going to be the wedding celebration in the States. Yeah. So in the December. So we were like, okay, let's just get to it. And as soon as we opened up the idea, it exploded.
Oh, yeah, no. Because at that point, so as a little preface, my family is super traditional, super Chinese traditional, at least my mom's side. My dad's side is a little more laid back. So when it comes to following traditions, we need to follow it to the T or we don't follow it at all. And in this case, we had to follow it to the T. We'll go over the specifics of the traditions later on. But I didn't even understand what I was getting myself into, even though I've seen my cousin's wedding and his was super traditional. But there's just so many small nuances that you don't catch when you're a viewer and you're a spectator, because there's the door that you need to go into, the right fruit on the table. You can't have the wrong fruit. If you have the wrong fruit, you can't have bananas, I believe. You need to have certain offerings on the altar.
For the day of the ceremony. Yeah. So let's take a step back and let's talk through finding a venue. I think we found the venue pretty early on. Yeah. And we were very lucky that the person working the venue, he was Vietnamese, and so he knew the ins and outs of having a Vietnamese wedding. So he was able to help us console a lot of things. So we were trying to have this on a budget. Our initial budget was around $25K, right?
That was going to be way less.
We thought that it was going to be way less because we thought that it was just going to be a party. We will have food and music and it'll be fun. It was just a party. But then when our parents knew that we were going to have this in December, it turned into a much more formalized thing. It's going to be a legit reception dinner. And so we couldn't wing it or anything like that. So there were just a lot of guests because There were a lot of guests because our parents, they're pretty popular, especially Andy's dad. He knows a lot of people, and he have a lot of friends that he wanted to invite to the wedding. So especially because he doesn't, if we were to go to Vietnam, it'll mainly be family. So if he's gonna have one, if we're gonna have one here, it's mainly so we can have our friends here and our parents' friends here, and the our families in the States. So we toured the venue, and we decided on a venue that gonna fit like 250 people, and that was enough.
Oh, no. 150.
150. And initially it was 150. It was very much bare bones. Like, we didn't even want decorations like centerpiece or anything like that, because it was going to be family style food.
Little tip: if you're having like a banquet style where it's like multiple courses, do not put decor on your table.
It's so smart.
People will literally take those decor off the table just to fit more food in.
Exactly. So we only had a few vases of flowers, and those were mainly for the family tables and for the brides and grooms, the bridal party. And even then, some of them ended up moving the vases off of the table because there was just so much food. It was 9 courses.
9 courses.
So there was not enough room for all the food. So we didn't go with the gartered for
Chargers.
Sorry, why did I say gartered? So we didn't go with the charger because it was going to take up too much space. So it was just plate, utensil, and a glass for drink. And it was very simple. We at least had a color scheme that we wanted, and we had very minimal decoration for the stage.
Yeah.
It's because a lot of the decoration was going to be DIY. And fun fact, like what we have here, the wreath was made for me during my bridal shower by one of my sorority sister. Her name is Chong. Thank you so much. Chong is now here. And then the sweet and sour sign, that was just for us. Yeah. So it saved a lot of money. We saved so much money on decor.
Yeah, the best thing I can say is that, like, for us, we didn't have a Western ceremony, so we didn't like go to a church or
and that saved us.
That saved us
a bit too. Yes.
A lot of that, what I thought was like a lot of that effort should be put into the Eastern ceremony in the morning, and I think it turned out pretty well.
Yes. So definitely the biggest part of our budget went towards food and drink. Like, we were very blessed to have a friend who recommended his contact, and she was amazing. Like, the food was fantastic. We got so much compliments for it, and it made me realize, like, wow, really spending on food and making people like enjoying the experience was the best thing. It was so rewarding.
For sure. There's honestly, like, the first 2 vendors that you should reach out to is venue and then food, right? Those are your 2 biggest ones. Everything else, that can be pushed back a little bit, but secure your food and secure your venue. But you are right, though. I think, like, where we valued I guess the value of the wedding was people's experience. And because we had the same mindset of that, I personally think it turned out really well.
Yes, I think going into it was very stressful because, one, it was very traditional. So your side of the family is much more traditional than my side of the family. And so learning how to balance both of that was a little bit difficult. But thankfully, both sides were very loving and very kind and very respectful of our days. And so there wasn't a lot of crazy criterias that we had to meet. And it was fantastic that your family came down to help set up the Eastern ceremony. And it was very beautiful.
So let me actually go into a little bit of detail about that in particular, because I know that like a lot of people, if they want to have a traditional Vietnamese or Chinese wedding, they're gonna struggle. And to be honest, we struggled all the way up until like I think the day before, until the morning of, realistically,
Yeah.
with like the traditional side of things, because especially if you don't grow up in that tradition and if like you aren't immersed in it, you're not going to know all the nuances, right? And so it's important to one, right, understand your value. Like we wanted it to be traditional because we wanted to pay respect towards our family. We wanted to pay respect towards the our guests who are coming, right? And of course, at the end of the day, like it's a tradition, and you want to be a part of that tradition. And I didn't really understand that until after the fact, until after the tradition, or after we went through the Eastern ceremony. And so, if you want to go down that route, understand that one, it's not for you. That's the first step.
Yeah, it's really not.
It's not.
It's really not.
Yeah.
And once we accepted that it was not for us, the way that I would recommend it to anyone is let's just look at it as a way of two families coming together, and you want to set up a stage where it's a very respectful
Yes.
and formal environment for both sides of the
Yes,
family to formally meet and come together in this union.
Because even though it's your wedding, the celebration isn't you. It's the celebration for your family raising you and, having you, raising you for so many years. And now this is the culmination of their work,
Right.
right? You're just the vessel.
Exactly.
To be honest.
That's what I realized. I think halfway through the wedding, when your aunt started talking about, this is my my nephew marrying to like I want to introduce the groom side of the family with the bride to the bride side of the family, I realized, wow, like everyone there has had a hand in raising you, and the fact that they're there, you should be happy to honor them for being there. I think nowadays it goes against the idea of individuality where we can do our own things and such. And I'm not saying that the way that we went with it, the way we're seeing it, make us better than anybody at all. It's just mainly our personal experience where giving back the respect for the people who have raised us, it was very rewarding, because the fact that we're now coming together as a family, it just tied back so much to how valuable family is within our culture and within our family.
I agree. I think that, having that mindset of like, hey, remove yourself from the situation, even though it's your day, absolutely, it's your wedding day, there's a part of you that can't be selfish when it comes to this, right? If you're deciding to have an Easter ceremony and follow these traditions, you can't be selfish, because it's not about you. It's not about us, right? And I struggled with that idea like so much, because I felt like we were bending over backwards for all of it. And like I felt like whatever they wanted, we did it.
Right.
They wanted XYZ, we got them the whole alphabet, essentially. Right? And so if we look back at it, I still think it was super worth it.
It was very worth it, yes. I think, so for the Eastern ceremony, you've put in so much work for it, right? Can you walk us back on how you were able to set up like the altar and such?
So after you guys have found after you guys have gotten the mental state, that's the most important part. Because afterwards, everything else becomes easy. Sort of. It's still hard, but still easy-ish. Find a venue. We did it at my dad's house. You can usually do it at a different venue if just logistics for like people who are out of town is, difficult. I get it. But oftentimes it's usually at either groom's house or bride's house. We did it at the groom's house. And
so in Vietnamese culture, there's two ceremonies.
Okay.
So there is vu gui, which is the ceremony at the bride's house where you are bringing gifts to the bride's house. So the groomsmen will carry gifts, and then they'll take it to the bride's house. At the gate, they'll hand it over to the bridesmaids, and they'll bring it in. The mother of the bride will divide the gifts in half for the groomsmen to take back. And then after you have all the gifts there and such, there's usually a party, and then you're able to bring the bride back to your house, and that is the Teng Home. It's called Teng Home. So nowadays, Tan Home, it means it's mainly for like at like a more of like a venue. So like hotel and such. If you have your wedding there, then it'll be more a Tan Home. So because it's more like combined, into.
She knows more about this than I do.
And so for what we had, we call it a Tan Home because just for the simplicity of things. So
okay, so once you have the venue down, next we did it in a more Chinese style, but oftentimes there's a lot of overlap. One, if you're like Buddhist centered, actually the best advice I can give you after this is find an elder or like someone who's older in your family who knows all of this.
Exactly.
They know like the process of how to do this. If you have someone who does that, for me it was my aunt, and even though she lived 7 hours away, I called her up like every other week, like, hey, how should I do this? How should I do that? How should I do this?
Yes. So I think you spend a lot of time building the altar for it to be a certain height. So if we have like viewers who are East Asian or Southeast Asian, like within the Buddhist culture, there's an altar for worshiping the ancestor. And so on the day leading up to that, you were building an altar for an ancestral altar, where for the day of the wedding we had a lot of offerings. So I recall like it doesn't have to be a certain level, but it has to make sense where it will look good when it films. You're not standing like up too low, like bending down too low to have to put the incense on, or you're not
like elbow to shoulder height, within that range, because you want it to be higher. It'll look nicer. And then on top of that, because the way my dad's house was built, it was super long and narrow. So we had to do it where even people in the far back could see it. Right. If you have it too low, people in the back aren't going to be able to see it.
Yep. So usually with tea ceremony, it's usually handled by the adults.
Yes.
But I think, it was a learning experience for you to be able to put it together. So everything was very red. There were so many. It was very traditional, red everywhere. We had red lantern hanging from the ceiling via fishing line. Yes, IKEA came in clutch because it was around the time of the Lunar New Year, and so we had very pretty lanterns. We ordered things from Amazon and Alibaba, to decorate the house as well. And preparing like the tea set and everything.
So I guess like if you're a couple months out from the tea ceremony, make sure that if you're ordering off Alibaba, order it as soon as possible, because it will take time to get here. The things that you should be looking for is in Cantonese it's Sanghei, or in Mandarin it's Shuangxi.
Double happiness.
Double happiness, yeah. So look up, just type in double happiness, and usually you want to plaster that everywhere, like pretty much everywhere we turn.
It's for good luck.
Yeah, it's for good luck. It's usually almost only used exclusively for this event, for a marriage event. But if you can find like little stickers for those, plaster them everywhere. I was lucky enough to have cousins in Vietnam who shipped a bunch of them over, and I think I still have a stack. And we like tape them up throughout the house, on the front door, the back door, the other front door, and it's like just order a bunch, like order like a 20-pack or something. If you can get the small stickers, get a bunch of those. We ended up like sticking those on fruits around the altar.
Yes, it looks so pretty.
It looks so
whenever
because it went from a regular
fruit
watermelon
to double
to
happiness.
double happiness
Watermelon.
Exactly.
And it looks really good in pictures, and it's the idea of auspicious.
Yes.
You know, you want all the auspicious thing. It's an auspicious occasion for the family coming together, a union here, like a marriage, starting a family. All this, it needs all of the auspicious.
The next thing I would tell you to find is the candles, not the candle set, a tea set would be nice. You can find those on Amazon for a relatively cheap. Find a nice one. Okay, small little note. We bought a bunch of stuff on Amazon, and like a week later, we returned all of it after the wedding. Regardless, find yourself a tea set because that's important.
Definitely a bigger, depending on how many people within your family, definitely a bigger tea set, a bigger teapot, I should say, because you do have to offer tea to both sides of the family. So what I didn't know about the Chinese culture was you're supposed to be on your knee whenever you're offering tea to the parents. And so that was a cultural shock to me, and it was a cultural shock for my family as well. We're pure Vietnamese. And so we offer tea to the elders. So by elders, I mean like our parents, if you have grandparents, aunts and uncles. And then when it comes to the cousins, you don't offer tea, you offer cake. But in Vietnamese culture, in Vietnamese culture, you don't kneel. And for the cousin, you also offer tea as well, or wine. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, the next thing that you should find, and this is more so towards Buddhist-centered traditions, and that's the incense pot and the candlestick holders.
It was funny because that's not something that we have on hand. So his dad was able to borrow it from someone, one of his friends, and that was how we were able to set up the altar. The incense stick that we brought in from Atlanta.
So the incense stick, that's different. The incense stick, it's a very specific incense stick. It's a dragon phoenix incense stick pair.
Yes.
And depending on how deep into the tradition you are, you either, if you burn it, you have to burn it all the way. Don't burn it halfway and then blow it out. Or you don't burn it at all, and you usually give that to the newlywed to give them to take back to their house afterwards. So it's sitting in our broom closet right now.
Yeah, I accidentally dropped it. It didn't break. It didn't break or anything like that. I accidentally dropped it. I was like, what am I going to do with this? Like, maybe when I have kids, it's their turn? Is it going to burn by then? I don't know.
But anyways, yeah, so we decided not to burn it. So it's sitting in our broom closet. After that, things for a day or 2 days before that you're going to want to buy is flowers, fruits, Cakes, yeah. So something that came in clutch for us is we ordered like 300
baked goods. It's not like slices of cakes or anything like that. If you were to go to like Asian markets,
puff pastry.
Yes, pastry, more or less like pastry, that you hand out. You put it on the altar, and then we also used it to give out to our cousins, as a thank you.
Cakes.
Yep. Yeah. And we had so much left that we brought it over to the venue, which was perfect because our guests were starving.
Yeah, because we put on the invitation, be there by 6, right? And most people run Asian time, but shockingly, like 80% of people showed up on time, like between 6 and 6:30.
Yes.
But we didn't start the actual event of like
7.
Bridal entrance until like 7:30, like around 7:15.
No, I think we were on the dot at 7.
At 7?
Yes.
So people who were there even earlier than that. There were people there even earlier. They were there by like 5:30. So they've been sitting around for an hour.
Our family was, which is, I thought the flow was pretty. It made sense because with our guests arriving early, there was a little bit more time to go into cocktail hours, to like have drinks, and then also come up on stage to take pictures with us and our family, because a lot of the guests knew each other, and so it's not just going to be like family coming up and then it'll be friends coming up taking pictures with the brides and grooms.
For sure.
it was really well planned out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things to do is to have a good timeline and a good coordinator on the day of.
We were very, very blessed to have a team
A team.
of
Yeah, for real.
amazing people, like his groomsmen and my bridesmaids. They came in clutch.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Nick and Hilda for helping us coordinate and come up with the timeline to the T.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's part of it. But yeah, okay, going back to the Eastern ceremony, the tea ceremony, I would say after you have all the stuff, so which is usually, again, incense, fruits and flowers for the day of, pastries, uh, you know, decor. So one of the things that we had was like a centerpiece was like this giant double happiness symbol. I made a little backdrop, a grass backdrop, and put the double happiness symbol on. So I built almost all the stuff for the tea ceremony myself. But try to have a nice backdrop for pictures, especially during the tea ceremony, because that's extremely important. It's just beautiful, beautiful pictures. If you can have like a happiness symbol, some type of curtains, choose either red or gold, one of the more traditional.
Pinterest was our best friend.
Pinterest is crack. It's like crack, I swear.
We went through Pinterest so much.
Yeah,
Pinterest and Instagram,
for sure.
but definitely Pinterest was it was very easy to use, especially putting together the mood board.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps like set the look for how you want it to look. And I would just take pieces, and it's like, I would find like, oh wow, yeah, let's try to find like this ceramic pot and put some like fake flowers in there, and it looked great. It really looked great.
Yes, it was a very big hands-on operation because we borrowed a lot of things from everyone. Yeah. So the 2 chairs that the elder sat on was from your cousin.
Yeah, because my dad didn't have any nice looking chairs.
The stand for the flower vase was from Hilda.
Yeah.
The altar setup pieces was from family friends. Yeah. So it was a very big family operation. So I would say like usually after the tea ceremony, we also had a lunch. So that's usually how it flows. In like a typical Vietnamese wedding, if you don't have a Western ceremony, then you go into lunch after the ceremony is over. After everyone's just let them mingle. It was really nice, and then definitely give them food because later on is going to be the reception.
Yeah. So let's actually nail into like a little bit more of the details of like the tea ceremony itself. And these are like the small nuances that like I learned and picked up along the way, right? So first thing, you gotta go through the front door. The way my dad's condo is set up is really weird because the front door is like on the front street, so you have to go completely around because we only ever go through the back door. We only go through the garage
because
door.
Parking at the back.
Exactly, parking's in the back, but you got to go through the front. So we had to lead the bridal party from the back where the parking is all the way to the front and go through the front door. Next, if you're gonna do like a Buddhist tradition, then you're going to pray to the ancestors first. All right, you're gonna pray to the just ancestors and make your offerings, and then after that,
and the offering is wine and tea.
Wine and tea.
And incense.
Wine, tea, and incense, right? And usually, like my dad, who's in this case was the host, and where it was set.
He'll start off.
Yeah, he's the one who starts it all off, right? After that, then it goes into the actual tea ceremony. But if you're not following Buddhist traditions, you can skip all that. For the actual tea ceremony itself, the first people to go and sit is usually the groom's grandparents, if applicable. So the way we set it up is there were 2 chairs in front of the backdrop, and we had a carpet down, and so the bride and groom would kneel in front of the chairs. And if you're Vietnamese, you don't have to kneel. But if you aren't, if you're Chinese, then you have to kneel. So the grandparents would go first. You would also have, I skipped this part. You need to have a lucky lady. So luckily, my aunt, who knew all this tradition, she ended up being the MC and ended up kind of hosting and guiding us through the whole experience, and I was so grateful for that. So grateful. Because if she wasn't there, honestly, I feel like we would just either half-assed it and try to do it as close as possible. And I think the end product just was way better having her.
It flow much better. I think that's why we open it up with having an elder. The most to do things.
Exactly. So after that, if your grandparents are there, you serve them tea first, and the lucky lady will be the person, the MC, to announce things like serve tea to your parents or serve tea to your grandparents. After your grandparents, then comes the parents, right? The parents of the groom. And then after that, it'll be the oldest uncle and aunt of the groom, and then descending downwards. So then it'll be like your second uncle and aunt, your third uncle and aunt. Usually it's father's side first and then mom's side afterwards. And then after all that's done, next comes the bride's side. So it'll be bride's grandparents.
Same flow.
Same flow, same order, right? And then at the end, then it'll be usually cousins all together, which will usually be like, in this case, it'll be like the groom's cousins, right? At that level, I guess.
And even then, they stand in order.
Yeah. Stand in order from oldest to youngest.
And by oldest, not in age, but oldest within the role within the family.
Yes.
So even if you are the youngest you're in age, you're the youngest, but your parents are the oldest child in the family, you still stand first.
Yeah. And then after that, usually we'll just, shotgun it all and say thank you to everybody. Unless like certain cousins have like words that they'll say, then it'll go from oldest to youngest.
Yep. So one other thing is whenever the groom side introduced, when it gets to the bride side, they'll have a speaker who represent the bride side of the family as well. And I'm very glad that it clicked, because in my head, whenever they start talking, I was like, this is a send-off.
Yeah.
My family is sending off their daughter. Not in the sense of like, giving me away or anything like that, but I'm marrying into this family. And so they have to send me off nicely and asking your side of the family to please look after her and look upon her with kindness, like as a daughter within your family now. So that was something that I didn't. I'm glad it clicked.
Small little note also is, in the case that where more oftentimes than not, your family, whenever you serve them tea, they're gonna give you gifts. It could be money, it could be jewelry. In the case that it's money, and if you have a large family, make sure you have some type of bag or like get a bridesmaid to help you hold all the stuff. Like just
someone that will not be the life of the party.
Yeah.
I would recommend, because usually we recommend it to be someone who is like an elder.
Yeah.
Who we have Asian aunties who will sit and watch the party. Exactly. They wouldn't, participate. They're the trustworthy. Yeah. Like they're not in the sense that you can't trust someone else, but like they're very reliable to look after all of your kids for you.
Yeah, so I definitely think that like having something on hand like that is just a small little note that I wish that we had thought of ahead of time. But there's always people who are willing to step up and help you out with those things. So I was lucky enough to have that. All in all, I am really happy with the way that the ceremony turned out. And I think that the more traditions, my biggest takeaway from all of it is that even though it was hard, even though it was difficult, it was a headache, it was stressful, the truth was that like, because it was so traditional, I valued it a lot more.
There was a lot more meaning.
Yes, it felt like so much.
You finally understand a lot of the meanings behind the ceremony.
It felt so much heavier because those words that are said during the ceremony, like my aunt said something along the lines of which translates to Andy who is now an official descendant of the Wynn family, right? And I'm like, well, this is different. Right? It's like all of a sudden, it's like, wow, they view me as an adult now.
Yes, I remember your aunt. She was like, bây giờ con là người lớn rồi.
Right.
And you're now an adult. And she said, you phải nhớ muôn đời một người, thương một người, trăng long đầu bạc. And it's like you committing to one person for the rest of your life until your teeth fall off and your hair is white.
Yeah. After 100 years, you know.
Yeah.
And I think
100 years. I love because one of your dad guys was like, who needs 100 years when you can have 1,000 years?
and
That was great.
yeah. So I think small little notes as well. Best don't say anything worthy of bad luck on that day, especially around elders, because they will like toy, which is like, hey, shush, don't say that. We don't say that on this day.
Yes.
Right? So words spoken on those days are very, very important. You never want to mention anything about death or divorce or anything about that on an auspicious day like that. So yeah, best to watch your words for sure.
Definitely. The elders gonna be
Yeah, they're eyeing.
they'll be watching you.
Right?
Because all eyes will be on you.
Yeah, all eyes will be on you for sure. But you know, definitely the afterwards, it's weird now. Like adults see me as an adult now. Like they don't just see me as a kid.
Because we have our own family now.
And I truly do feel different. Like the best way I can explain it is like if me and Lynn and my dad were go to a wedding, like a family friend's wedding, we would take one picture all together with the bride and groom. But then me and Lynn would take a picture with just the bride and groom as well, because now I'm viewed as like head of household.
Yes,
Right.
with the head of the household.
So well, that's such a heavy title. It's such a heavy title.
You can be the breadwinner.
Yeah, head of household.
I want to be household wife.
Oh, we'll rock
Okay,
paper scissors.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
I think this will be the ongoing.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that about wraps up the tea ceremony.
If it feels really scattered, because it was very scattered whenever we went through it.
Sure.
We were very lucky to have a lot of friends and elders in our life and who were willing to provide guidance,
Yeah, absolutely.
and being able to open up to guidance was what saved us ultimately.
Yeah, just be
from-
able to be willing and be humble about it. Because if you think that like, oh yeah, I want it to be done this way, you're gonna be hitting
Not.
every single rock, going
Yeah.
downwards. Just be flexible. That's like one of the biggest notes that I could say is being flexible with how the schedule goes, how everything goes, right? And being able to rock. I think our family friend who helped us so much. He was one of the MCs at the ceremony as well. He said something that I will remember for the rest of my life, and it was regarding even in the stressful situations, even if the sky comes falling down, you still have to smile for pictures.
Yes.
That is like, wow, that is absolutely true. And that made me look at the whole event completely.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
anyways, do you have anything else to say?
No, I think you said it very well.
I think we covered just about everything.
Yes.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Sweet and Sour Therapy podcast. Until next time,
Bye.
like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye.